You know those dark, creeping patches that show up in the corner of your bedroom? Or maybe behind the wardrobe? You scrub them, you air out the room, but somehow they always find a way back?
It's a super common and super frustrating problem. I mean, why that room, of all places? The one spot in the house you just want to be a clean, restful sanctuary. Well, we're going to unravel that exact mystery today.
But here's the thing, and this is really the key point. This probably has nothing to do with how well you clean. Nope. The real reason mold has a special love for your bedroom, well, it all comes down to this fascinating and pretty much invisible scientific process that happens every single night.
So, let's start with why the bedroom is what you could call the overlooked room. It's a space that behaves so differently from the rest of your house, but we just don't tend to think about it that way.
And this is exactly why we get this false sense of security, right? You see a little patch, you give it a wipe, and poof, it looks like it's gone. Or better yet, summer rolls around and it just vanishes. It really feels like you've solved the problem, but in reality, it's just lying in wait.
So to really get to the bottom of this, we have to ask the most important question. Where on earth is all this moisture coming from? It's not like you're boiling a kettle in there all night, right? Well, the source is actually you.
There's a scientific term for it. It's called nighttime moisture loading. Now, that sounds pretty technical, but all it really means is that while you're sleeping for, 6, 7, 8 hours, you are constantly breathing and perspiring, slowly loading moisture into the air. That's the invisible source.
And just think about how different that is. The steam from a hot shower? You can see it, you can feel it. A boiling pan on the stove? Obvious. But this is a slow, steady, and completely invisible buildup of moisture, night after night after night. Okay, so we've got all this invisible moisture hanging in the air. But honestly, that's only half the story. The real problem, the perfect storm, gets created when the room itself starts to transform as the temperature outside begins to drop.
Now, to get this, we just need a tiny little bit of physics. And it's super simple, I promise. Think of the air in your room like a sponge. Warm air is like a big, thirsty sponge. It can hold a lot of moisture. But when that same air gets cold, the sponge basically shrinks. It just can't hold as much water, and it gets saturated really, really easily.
And this sets off a chain reaction every single night. The temperature outside drops, which makes your windows and outside walls colder. Then the air inside touches those cold surfaces, cools down, and that sponge shrinks. It's now forced to wring out all that extra moisture, and that's condensation. That's the water you see on windows or the dampness you feel on the walls. So this whole condensation process is totally natural. But, and this is a big but, almost every bedroom has certain features that act like accomplices, creating these perfect little hidden microclimates where mold can absolutely thrive. And there are three main culprits here. First, we often keep our bedrooms cooler on purpose, right? It helps us sleep. Second, where we put big furniture, like wardrobes, totally blocks airflow. And third, let's be honest, the little vents in most bedrooms just can't handle 8 hours of nonstop moisture production.
And this explains exactly why mold shows up where it does. That big wardrobe shoved up against an outside wall, it stops the warm air from circulating. So the wall behind it stays colder, trapping all that damp air and creating the perfect, undisturbed little hideout for mold to grow. So this brings us to that deeply annoying cycle. Why does it seem to just vanish in the summer, only to come back with a vengeance the second the weather turns? Well, we call this the seasonal deception. It's actually a pretty clever trick. In the warmer months, the air is warmer. There's less condensation, so the mold just dries out and fades away. You think you've won, but the spores, they're just dormant. They're waiting. And the moment the nights get colder and the condensation comes back, boom, they have the moisture they need to wake up and start growing all over again. So all of this forces us to ask a much bigger question. Is that little patch of mold behind your bed just a local issue, or could it actually be a symptom of a much wider problem with your home's heating, its ventilation, or even its insulation?
All right, let's bring this all together. What is the real takeaway here? Why does this specific type of mold matter so much more than you might think? Well, the answer comes down to one simple word: exposure.
It all boils down to this number, 6 to 9 hours. That is how long most of us spend in our bedroom every single night, breathing the air in that one single enclosed space.
In that long, uninterrupted period of exposure, that is exactly why even a small amount of mold in a bedroom can be way more significant for our health than a much bigger patch in a hallway we just walk through. The context, the where, makes all the difference.
So ultimately, here's what it all means. Bedroom mold isn't just another item on your cleaning to-do list. It's a signal. It's your house trying to tell you that there's a long-term imbalance between moisture, heat, and airflow.
So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. The next time you see that patch of mold, try to reframe it. Don't just see it as a nuisance you have to scrub away. Instead, ask yourself, what is my bedroom trying to tell me about the health of my entire home? Because that little patch of mold is often the very first and quietest warning sign you'll ever get.